for IMG physicians to help out during this COVID-19 pandemic.
Sure, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate this evening, answer the questions, and let everybody know the work that ECFMG has been doing for the J1 visa holders and IMGs in general. I've been in my role as president and CEO of ECFMG for not quite 4 years. And it was very apparent to me when I started that it was important for ECFMG to be advocates for international medical graduates. And I personally have reached out to many organizations, including the AMA and the IMG section, participating in a lot of activities to understand some of the issues that perhaps I previously might not have appreciated, and B, assure everybody of the support from ECFMG. Probably about 2 weeks before the match came out in March, we were in conversation with the Department of State. I like to think that some of my professional experience as an interventional pediatric cardiologist, as well as my administrative experience, has taught me to get out in front of issues and not wait for problems to occur. And because we have an excellent relationship with the Department of State, particularly the career people that work in state, we reached out a couple weeks before the match to remind them, and I really didn't need the reminder, but it's good to have a dialogue, that we would probably have several thousand individuals applying for J1 visa. And even though we do not deal with the H1B visa, we also brought that up to Department of State as well, knowing that so many people do. Right after the match came out, and we were able to see what the numbers were, we again had a individual conversation with the Department of State. And then when the administration announced that the consulates and embassies were going to no longer be processing visas because of the problems with the virus in those countries, we sort of simultaneously reached out to the Department of State, and they reached out to us, and to identify individuals seeking the J1 and H1B, and again, even though we don't deal with H1B, to understand that it was important. And they had to run this up the chain of command, so to speak, to be sure that they were in step with the government. And they quickly responded that they not only would be able to assure that the visas would be delivered, but they pledged us to facilitate the processing of the visa applications, and posted this on their website, and then reached out to all of their embassies and consulates, instructing them to do so. Since then, the process, I would characterize the process as having gone reasonably well with some problems. And I believe in being transparent, and I'll explain some of the difficulties that have occurred around the world. Overall, the processing is going well. However, there's been one-off situations that I'm aware of in a variety of different countries that have been brought to our attention by applicants. And when they have brought that to our attention, we have contacted the Department of State, and they have made individual calls and/or communications to the embassies and consulates, instructing them to process the visas. To date, the numbers of those that have been processing has been pretty close to what it has been historically year to date, and maybe a little bit ahead. There's one glaring exception, and that exception is in India. In India, the processing has been very slow. We were in contact with the Department of State at the end of last week to go over the problems. They met with their staff sent out instructions. And as of yesterday, they are telling us that the processing should be going forward. I do not have confirmation of that today. It's just too soon. But I can guarantee everybody that we are on top of that and will not be leaving that to chance. And I trust the Department of State, the career people, because they have followed through on the things that they have needed to do. We recognize that the statement of need that was mentioned earlier could be a problem, since that generally the statement of need from the home country generally comes from either the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Health, and many of those offices are closed. So we petitioned the Department of State to allow the home country embassy here in the United States grant or issue the statement of need, which is not something that they've done before, and they've agreed to that. And so statement of needs are coming from embassies in this country. If anyone, any of the applicants are not aware of this for some reason, because we have posted this information, as well as have reached out to all of the liaison officers in the programs in the teaching hospitals to let them know about this as well. Please let people know that, and/or have them get in touch with us. We've also been concerned about the 30-day need to leave the country at the end of training, and the logistics involved with that. So again, we petitioned the Department of State to relax that, and they have now relaxed that to a 90-day period from 30 days. Personally, I'm not sure if 90 days is long enough, but it's certainly better than the 30 days. The final thing that I'll mention is I was trying to think of barriers to the 4,200 individuals coming into the country. Air travel popped to my mind right away in terms of the disruption, borders being closed, etc. And so through a variety of contacts, I eventually found myself talking to a vice president in charge of international air travel for an organization called A4A, stands for Airlines for America. This is the sort of the professional organization for the US-based airlines. And this fellow was very, very accommodating and very interested in what the problem was. And I was thinking when I first talked with him that, we were going to have to charter planes to bring people over if we could figure out how to do that. But he actually, I sent him the information of the embarkation places, countries for the 4,200 people. And he reviewed that, and then he and I had a conversation about what points, what airports were working well for transient travelers. For example, he mentioned Abu Dhabi Airport is working very well for transient passengers. He said even Paris and London are for individuals who are not planning on staying in the country but would be traveling to the United States. And he actually said that there was probably the most flights that were available were through Canada, and suggested routes through Canada as well. So we passed that information again on to the program directors, and frankly, we queried yesterday, I think, and we're not hearing about transportation problems, which actually surprises me some. I'm still very nervous about that, but I also know that some have already arrived in the country, because we've gotten notification, because we have to be notified when the J1s arrive in the country, and we've already had some notification for that. I will add also that we've had two webinars for the program directors, their liaison officers at all the teaching hospitals, and each webinar had over 800 people in attendance, so we could tell them what we've been doing, as well as to hear issues back from them. And we followed up with a survey asking what kind of problems were they seeing, to see if there's something else that we should be intervening in. So I feel pretty good that the efforts and the focus that we've had to assist the programs and the international medical graduates has been pretty robust. The final verdict will be how many are here on time and able to start. You know, I know that there's also quarantine issues that are going to come up, and I feel pretty good about the teaching programs that they're prepared for that as well. I can't really address the other issues that came up with the H-1B since we don't, you know, deal with that as an organization. I'm sympathetic to them and to the individual issues, but I've got more than my fingers crossed. I feel like we made some progress in helping our new residents get here.
Thank you, Dr. Pensky and the ECFMG for the tremendous amount of work you guys have already done for IMGs. Dr. Andrews, what would you say about the progress from your side that we have done so far?